Hey everyone, and welcome back to another F1 Roundup brought to you by the Seedream F1 app. More on those a little bit later. We are coming into the closing part of the Formula One season for 2024, and I am excited. Not only because the racing has been great and I expect more of that to come, but we've got a lot of new things, a lot of exciting things coming up in the last few rounds that I think will mean you cannot turn away from this sport until the very final closing day. I will also be on the ground in Austin, heading out there in the next couple of days, something I always love to do, catching up with people, seeing things up close and personal, and I will bring you some content from the other side of the pond too. But heading into Austin, we've got a new driver. We've got Liam Lawson in the RB from that round onwards for the rest of this season. Let's talk about that. Daniel Ricciardo was, of course, dropped pretty unceremoniously off the back of the last round, last time out. You can have your opinions on that. I've done a video on that already. Please go back and watch it if you haven't seen it already. But Liam Lawson is an exciting prospect in himself. We've seen him, of course, in the car before. We know how talented he is. We know how good he is. But this is a major opportunity, not just for the remainder of this season, but that we know that second seat at the main Red Bull team is always there up for grabs. Helmut Marko just this last week talked about how in 2025 and beyond, he could easily see a young driver in the frame for that seat next to Max Verstappen. He talked about Yuki Tsunoda being a possibility for that. Liam Lawson is clearly a possibility and effectively going through something of a job interview over these next few races to see if he stands out and feels like he could be a good replacement for Checo. And Checo, his job is definitely under threat. We know he had contract extension or confirmation in recent times, but we also know that at Red Bull, that effectively doesn't mean very much. And drivers can be moved around at the drop of a hat, as we've seen over and over again. So the two youngsters in the RB are definitely coming into these final few rounds with a mission to prove themselves, with an opportunity to show what they can do, with a view to that leading to some really big opportunity, potentially alongside Max in the Red Bull main team for 2025 and onwards. That's something to keep a very close eye on. We also have had announcements that Toyota are effectively coming back into this sport, albeit slightly tenuously with the Haas team. Now, this isn't just a marketing exercise. There is something behind this. There's a lot of technical expertise. There's a lot of technical partnership in terms of technology share. There's a lot of engineering know-how that can be shared in both directions, by the way. But interestingly, Toyota are having a closer look at Formula One, and that's perhaps the most intriguing part of all this. Are they dipping a toe in the water to understand what modern day Formula One is like, with a view potentially to coming back into this sport with all the changes that have happened in recent times, to how much it costs, what the return on investment is like, with the modern changes that are coming in for 2026 to the cars and power units? Is this something that could tempt a major manufacturer like Toyota? And is this the very first step at getting a closer look at that? We will keep an eye on that as that begins to unfold. Before we go forward, let me very quickly tell you about Seedream. Seedream is a Formula One app for Formula One fans like you and me that I believe is the best app out there for us. It has all of your Formula One content in one easy to use place. And I don't just mean it peppers you with every single piece of content that's out there. I mean, it selects the very best from the trusted content creators that we know, the trusted journalists in terms of written articles. There is social media feeds from all the people you know and love around breaking news stories where it's all grouped together. You don't have to go searching across multiple different apps. It's all there in one place. I would love it if you go and give it a try. It's free. You can download it from the App Store or via the link in the description. And I absolutely believe that you won't regret it. If you've tried it already, let me know what you think. And if you haven't, please go and try it now and then let me know what you think. Right, we'll get on to covering the very tight and fascinating world title battles in 2024 in a moment. But before we do that, let's cover off a couple of stories that have appeared in the Seedream app over the last couple of weeks while F1's been away. First of all, that remaining seat at Sauber. It was looking much more like Valtteri Bottas was in the frame, but since Mattia Binotto has come in, it feels like he's going to favour a younger driver. And that means Mick Schumacher is very much now back in the frame for that seat. I'd love to know your opinions on that, because Mick Schumacher had a very turbulent time in Formula One. He is working with the Mercedes team right now, and Toto absolutely rates him. Whether he will end up getting the job, I don't know, because we've also got a couple of young drivers. Bortoletto from Formula 2, Franco Colapinto doing an amazing job in the Williams. But it does feel like a young driver is going to get that seat alongside Hülkenberg, which to me feels like the right choice. You've got Hülkenberg, you don't need a Valtteri Bottas. Much as I love the guy, it feels like two drivers very much similar, very much of the same kind of ilk, bringing something to the team, experience. Get the experience from Nico Hülkenberg, but pair it with a young driver that's exciting, that you can build into the future of that organisation. It feels like that could well be what's going to happen. What else do we need to talk about? We need to talk about Alpine. Alpine confirmed they will not be producing a Formula One power unit for the new set of regulations coming in 2026. From a financial perspective, I, of course, get it. It's a very, very big financial investment for an organisation like that. But on so many other levels, I don't get it at all. From a competitive point of view, it feels like there's a major opportunity to produce chassis and power unit together. And if you can get that right, you stand to be an advantage. You have an advantage over others, like Mercedes did with the 2014 regs, like Ferrari will be hoping they can do, of course. Mercedes will hope they can do it again in 26. They could have come in, Alpine, and seen that opportunity and thrown everything at it to try and catapult themselves up the grid. But on a commercial point of view, it also seems weird. They're effectively suggesting that if you want to buy an Alpine road car, and don't forget, Alpine are in Formula One to sell road cars. That is why they exist as a team. They're effectively saying, yeah, we can produce a great car, but we're not very good at making engines. So they're going to go and buy an engine from Mercedes. So what they're saying is, if you want to buy this sports car that we produce for the road, which is expensive and is a great car, go ahead, do it. But know that we are not really as good as our major competitors at producing engines or power units. It feels like a really odd message to send out, one that I still don't quite fully understand. McLaren are doing a good job of proving that you can win with a customer engine, and that will be the big part of this decision-making process. But I still think it's an odd one on the grand scheme of Renault/Alpine being in Formula One for so long as a major manufacturer of chassis and power units, giving up what I think is one of the biggest opportunities and advantages if you leverage it properly in Formula One. Seems like a strange decision. I can't quite get my head around it. And it may well just be that the financials are the biggest deciding factor behind it, and perhaps they just can't afford it. And on that front, you can't really argue. But Formula One is one of these businesses where it's not just about the financials. This is about competition. And from a competition point of view, I can't help feeling like it's the wrong choice. Let's talk about Red Bull and the championship fight. The championship fight is close. It's tight. We know that. It's been getting closer and closer all the way through the year, to the point where McLaren are now in front, both in terms of the Constructors' Championship, but also in terms of their on-track performance. They have a car right now which has generally been better at pretty much every track, which means that if it continues in that form, it's going to be mighty close in the Drivers' Championship between Lando and Max by the end of this season. But, and there is a big but, Red Bull also feel like they've turned a slight corner in understanding their car. We've been through a series of racetracks which definitely haven't suited them, the sort of anomalies of Singapore and Baku. But we're now coming into a run of much more traditional, if you like, racetracks. Racetracks that should suit that Red Bull car a little bit more. Don't get me wrong, it will absolutely suit the McLaren. The McLaren seems to have a really wide operating window where it kind of works anywhere, and that's one of its biggest strengths right now. But I suspect the gap could be closer to Red Bull over the coming rounds, particularly if they've managed to turn a corner in terms of understanding which way they need to develop, which way they need to set the car up, what they need to do to minimise the defects and maximise the opportunities that Red Bull car has. I still think it's going to be very, very close. Series of sprint races coming up as well. More points available and opportunities for everybody. If you're Lando, you need to take every single one of those to be in with a shout of the title by the end of the season. And if you're Max, you kind of need to do the same to stop that happening. It could come down to major reliability issues, whether someone needs to take engine penalties, if somebody has an absolute shocker in qualifying, or if someone has an accident or gets some bad luck in a race. These things are all possibilities that could play out on either side and could completely shape the championship direction that it goes. And the teammates of those two drivers are also going to play a big role here. Oscar Piastri, in great form right now, can be there to not only take points away from Red Bull and Max, but also to really be there to back up Lando and to be used as a strategy pawn, if you like, to really take the fight from Woking to Milton Keynes. And that could be a really key part of this, because at Red Bull, Checo, although he's had a couple of good races recently, just isn't of the same calibre as Max. He isn't of the same calibre as the double driver pairing that McLaren have right now. And that feels like a major advantage in a team sport where every single point is going to matter this season. The big question, I'd love to know your thoughts on this, are the points that McLaren left on the table in that mid-season flurry where they were a bit indecisive when it came to strategy and also around team orders, are those few points they left out on the track, are they going to be the ones that really cost them dearly? People said it at the time. I think we all said it at the time too. I hope not. Listen, I'm a McLaren fan. I can't help that. I worked for the team for 10 years. I'm always going to be a McLaren fan. I'd love to know your thoughts on this, though. Which way is it going to go? And is it going to be costly the way McLaren operated through that mid-season period? Let me know your thoughts on that and everything else. And please go and download the Seedream app. It is totally free and you will not regret it. I genuinely believe you're going to love it. It's the first app I open on my phone every single day now, because I'm a Formula One fan like you. So go give it a try and let me know what you think. And I will be back from Austin next week to review the US Grand Prix. And in the meantime, have a wonderful time. Ta-da.